اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Assalamu alaikum once again. Okay, it's a pleasure to be invited here to give a short talk. I don't want to take up too much of your valuable time, but I've been asked to speak about two topics, engineering and a bit about social media. But I guess the best way I feel like to tell that story is I guess tell you a bit about my journey and how I ended up in these two, what seem very distant places, but somehow I've been able to bring them together. But first of all, hands up if you've flown out of Heathrow Airport. Just want to see a quick show of hands. Okay, so most of you. My parents arrived to the UK 1991 at Heathrow Airport. So you can imagine the fact that I work there now, it's like it's gone full circle. So in 1991, my parents arrived here. I grew up, born and raised, local to the airport, northwest London, born and raised, went to Khoti school down the road. The reason why I mention all of this is I want to basically show you that I am literally one of this community. I haven't gone far. My whole life I've been part of this community, and it's something I'm extremely proud of to be here and inshallah to be able to give something back. When I was growing up, I didn't really know what I wanted to be when I was older, and I know a lot of young people probably get asked this question, what do you want to be when you're older? And it's really hard, it's daunting to know what you want to be when you're older, because it feels like a definitive choice, something you have to make, and that's it, you're stuck with that choice for the rest of your life. I remember I used to love planes growing up, to be frank. Like, the thing is, it wasn't a very cool thing to be in love with. Like, everyone was playing football, loving all this other stuff. Thank you. Everyone's loving all this other stuff, but I liked physics and I liked planes. I used to go home and binge watch YouTube videos about people explaining how the International Space Station flies around the world. And I'll be honest with you, there's probably like a few people here that can resonate with that, and a lot of this talk is for those people. Like, if you find that cool, then just listen up, right? Because I did when I was younger, but a lot of society didn't find that cool. And there was a time in my life where I was almost about to shut that off. But hopefully I can inspire you to delve into that and to hold on to it, because there's something in there. I remember I went to one of my uncles when I was younger, and I told him that I want to be an aerospace engineer. And the first thing he told me was, Mohammed, 9/11's just happened. Your name is Mohammed, you're an Arab, you're going to grow a beard one day. Nobody's going to give you a job in the aviation industry. I went to another uncle, told me the exact same thing. Two uncles told me nobody was going to give me a job in the aviation industry, and they basically told me to shut off that dream that I had to want to get involved with that. And I was almost about to do that. But alhamdulillah, I had a supporting family around me that pushed me to actually go and to make that happen. I studied aerospace engineering at university. Now, for a lot of you might not know what engineering is. Just to really simply explain what engineering is, and this is for the younger people in here who might not have chosen their career choices, or maybe people who might want to shift their career choices at some point. If we were to rewind back in time, back to when somebody lived on one side of the river, and everything they needed was on the other side of the river, and they had to get from one side of the river to the other, but they didn't want to swim across. What would you suggest they do? What would you suggest they do? Build a bridge. Now, to build a bridge, you have to understand how gravity works. You have to understand how structures work. You have to understand how all the different materials you're going to put together work in order for you to build a bridge. So there's a few fundamental bits of science that you need to get your head around in order to be able to provide a solution in that ecosystem, in that environment. Now, when you want to fly from one area to the other, all you really need to understand is how does air work. If you can understand air enough, you can literally design a plane that can fly from one continent to another. If you understand artificial intelligence enough and what sort of prompts to give it, then that's called prompt engineering. You're literally solving problems within different domains. No matter what your interest is, there's an engineering part to that interest. You could be fascinated by soap and hand cream, and there's people out there that work as soap engineers. They literally understand soap so well and how it reacts with skin that they can problem solve and innovate within that space. Every single thing that you might be interested in, there are engineers behind the scenes that understand it so well that they can innovate and problem solve within that space. So if you want to think, oh, what even is engineering? Engineering is literally being able to get your head around something so that you can improve it or solve problems within it. Whether that's build a bridge, build a plane, make soap, design prompts for artificial intelligence, anything you get your head around and are able to innovate and problem solve within, that's engineering. And I love doing that. And how did I know I love doing that? When my mum brings home IKEA, yeah, And I'm sat there on my hands and knees trying to fix it and put it all together. That's how I knew I loved understanding stuff, because I sit there looking at the diagram. People around me are like, how do you even understand that? I'm like, no, I get it. It makes sense. And I'm sat there building stuff. So if that's something that you've realized is within you, maybe engineering is something you can pursue. That's a bit about engineering. I love doing that sort of stuff. So I studied aerospace engineering, graduated. I started working at Heathrow Airport. Now at Heathrow Airport, I don't do the planes. Everyone thinks I do the planes. I don't actually fix the planes. I fix the whole airport environment itself. So everything from the baggage system, the runway lights. I joined what they call a graduate scheme. And hands up if you're at uni at the moment, or if you're going to go into uni. Just a quick show of hands. I want to understand people who are at uni. Okay, there's a couple of people there. Graduate schemes are fantastic after you finish your degree for one specific reason. Most graduate schemes are like a rotational program. So you join something for 3 years, and they allow you to rotate from one department to another and try lots of different things. That's really important. And it's really important for one reason. It allows you to discover yourself. The best way I can describe it is, imagine walking into an open buffet restaurant. Would you fill up your plate with the same thing on the first time round? Just one thing. You go around, you fill it up with one thing, and you sit down. Would you do that? Of course not. You're going to put a bit of this, a bit of that, maybe a bit of this, a bit of that. Avoid the salad section at all costs. Go for the meat, stack it up. That's what I would do. Within a graduate scheme, you get a chance to go around whatever industry you want and try a bit of this, 6 months of that, a couple of months of this, and by the end of it, you understand what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy. You see, the whole journey of careers is that thing. What do you enjoy? What do you don't enjoy? And how can you navigate that environment once you understand yourself? So I joined on the graduate scheme, and I got a chance to go around the whole airport and understand how the baggage system works, so that I can problem solve and innovate within it. I started understanding how the control tower works and how they guide planes around the airport, so that I can problem solve and innovate within that environment. Every single time I was doing a different rotation around the patch, I'd literally be learning how that part of the airport works and how we can problem solve it and make it better. And while I was there, I felt a sudden sense, how do I describe this? I felt guilty for being there and not sharing what I was learning. There's a hadith or a saying that says, the tax on knowledge is passing it on. And I was learning a lot of things, but I didn't feel like I was passing it on to anyone. I felt like I was learning all this stuff and I was being selfish. I was keeping it all to myself. So I was speaking to one of my family friends. She's called Hawra Milani. Some of you may know her. And she said, Mo, why don't you start sharing your journey? Why don't you put this stuff out there? I was like, who's going to care? And she goes, you never know. There might be one kid out there who cares. And I decided to start putting my journey on social media, one step at a time. I started to share what I do and what I'm learning about. All I'd do is I'd learn something, and I'd go online, and I'd write about it, and I'd put a video up, and I'd share it. And I kept doing that. Instead of, and I tell you this fact, yeah, I used to waste so much time on social media. Still do. But I promised myself at one point, I was literally doom scrolling for time. And I told myself, Mohammed, if you're going to be on this app, at least use it for something good. Don't just waste your life on here. And I realized there's two sides of the coin you can be on. You can either consume or you can create. And I decided to jump from the consumption side to the creation side. And I just started to put something positive out into the world that I wished when I was 16 years old, somebody was doing for me. The same sort of stuff I used to watch on YouTube, I was now putting up about the airport because I was learning about it, and I just felt this desire to pass it on and teach somebody else about it. And alhamdulillah, over the past 5 years that I've been doing that, the community has grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. And before I know it, I'm getting messages from people within our own community who are telling me the only reason they still have Instagram on their phone is because they love watching the videos that I'm putting on there. And then the second part of that message was, I would love to be an engineer at the airport, but I have no idea where to start. I hear you guys have this thing called an apprenticeship. How do I do it? That young person, I replied to him, I helped him out. Before I knew it, a couple months later, he is now an engineer working at the airport, and he's actually sat in this room right here. He's on the apprenticeship scheme at Heathrow Airport, all because of an Instagram page. And you think, wow, that's mad, but that's the power of social media when you flip it and you try and do it to do something good. The wonderful thing about social media is it allows you to put a message out into the world. But the bad thing about social media is you can literally sit there and waste your whole life just consume, consume, consume. So if any of you are considering like going on social media, putting a message out on social media, I would recommend it. Alhamdulillah, it's changed my life in ways that I would have never expected, but it's also been able to allow me to serve other people in a way that I would have never imagined either. It's allowed me to serve and give back and really try and leave my mark on this world in a digital age where everything is changing so quickly. Like I have a chance to just give something back to the world and leave some sort of legacy that potentially people might remember me for. And all of that literally happens because of the same thing we all have on our pockets, in our pockets. Everyone has this in their pockets. It could be a tool to do something good in the world if you choose for it to be. The other interesting thing that happened when I started doing stuff on social media is I realized I love it. I love making videos and I love putting them on the internet to educate people. And I realized that, hold on a minute, I know I studied 4 years to be an engineer, but I really enjoy making educational videos and sharing them online. Like, do I just ignore that or do I do something with it? Like I've recognized within myself that there's something. You know how I said you go around on a graduate scheme and you learn a bit about this and a bit about this? Same way with the open buffet, you taste a bit of this, taste a bit of that. Imagine you walk through this open buffet, you go into one corner, you taste something and you're like, damn, this is amazing. Would you just ignore it and go to the rest of the stuff because maybe your family tells you, no, this is the good stuff. Leave that stuff behind. You wouldn't. You'd still go back to that stuff because it was so good. The thing is, you should have to figure out how to make a life out of that, how to make a career out of that. So the fact that I love social media, alhamdulillah, I've actually been able to change position within Heathrow Airport from the engineering team to join the content creation social media team. Just because I loved it. And this whole career journey that I feel like I'm going on, the only analogy that so far has really clicked, that has allowed me to understand what careers are, or at least what I understand careers to be. Who's seen those pictures or those videos on Instagram where there's somebody on an iPad and they zoom into a sketch? And as they zoom into that sketch, they zoom into like a really small part of it. And then as they're zooming in, another picture emerges as they're zooming in. And then they zoom in a little bit more into that picture, and then another really good picture comes up, and they zoom into that. And they keep zooming into this picture more and more and more pictures are showing themselves as they're zooming in. Just because you start your journey looking at one thing, and it might be the thing that you think, oh my God, I'm going to have to do this forever, doesn't mean that as you discover more about yourself, as you're zooming into who you are and what resonates with you, you're not going to discover that there's a whole nother career journey that could be waiting for you around the corner. You don't have to stick to the same thing, in my opinion. As you're understanding yourself more, you're unlocking different paths that you could potentially go down. And it reminds me of the hadith from Imam Ali that says, you think that you are a small entity, yet within you there is an entire universe, or within you is an unfolded entire universe. Think about that for a second. You're going to spend 70 years of your life, 50 years of your life working. You might as well use that journey as a journey of self-discovery to figure out what it is that you love and what value you want to add to this world. And it might not be something conventional. You might not want to just be a doctor or a pharmacist or a dentist, and there's nothing wrong with those things. But I'd say when you're in that environment, figure out what specific part of that really resonates with you, and then see if you can zoom into that and make something else out of that, and make something else out of that. And whether that's combining that with content creation or combining it with another niche of AI, it just depends on what's happening in here. The most important part of any career journey, genuinely, I believe, is always having an ear out to figure out what's going on inside here. Because there's no point going to work if you don't genuinely feel some sort of buzz when you're there that gives you that drive to want to excel, to be the best. As Muslims, we want to be the best. We want to be the best at the things that we do. We don't want to be mediocre. We really shouldn't aim to be mediocre. We shouldn't aim to get some normal jobs doing normal things. The only way we're going to be able to excel and be the best at something is if we choose something that actually resonates, actually makes us think, damn, I want to wake up and stay up all night working on this thing, because it gives me a feeling that it gives me something else doesn't. Every single person here will have something different that feeling, it gives them that feeling. So what I'd say is use your career journey as an opportunity to discover yourself. And as you discover yourself, you can pave your own path in this world. And it could be something that never even existed 5 years ago. You're paving your own path. I think that's the most beautiful journey anyone can go down. So thank you so much for listening. And inshallah, we can benefit from the lectures and benefit from this session. And I also want to say a massive thank you to the organizers of this majlis. We have Shabab here who are literally volunteering from their own time to put this stuff together. So I'd love to end with a massive salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad for them. Allah.